Join Coco and I in the woods today, and I'm going to have a chat about my time in the underworld, my experiences of the Witches Black Lent, the downloads that came through, and my experiences meeting with another form of the dark goddess, meeting with Persephone, receiving downloads, healing, activations, and an invitation. So do get yourself a nice hot drink, settle back, relax, and enjoy. Hello, welcome to the woods. I am here on a lovely spring day. It's a couple of weeks since the equinox, and I'm taking Coco for a lovely walk around the woods. And it's been a really warm day, so it's a really warm afternoon, and yeah, it's just lovely. So I was planning to do a sit-down video today for this, but I feel that, yeah, with the way today was, we went out to a National Trust place with the kids, and it's the Easter holidays, and it's just a little bit intense. So after that, coming back, I decided, because it's still nice, and you know, Coco hasn't had like a proper long walk. We did walk around the gardens quite a bit at the National Trust place, but I thought it would be nice to get a bit of a long walk in. And I thought I could do one of these vlogs because people usually say that they like them, so that's good. It's going to be quite a chatty one. I haven't written anything down, it's all in my head, so I'm just going to go with it. But today I want to talk about the Witches Black Lent and that whole process for me so far, and I think this is going to be the only video I'm going to do. I want to explain a little about this whole kind of portal that I've been in during this Lenten and how it's been for me, the experience of it, because it's been very different to the previous years when I have engaged in Witches Black Lent. So in previous years I've done lust, and then last year I did wrath, and this year I was struggling to make a choice on which sin I wanted to reclaim and, you know, practice with and journey with during this time. And for a couple of weeks it was really something I wasn't entirely sure about, and the process though of choosing, it ended up kind of pushing me towards one of them, but I was sort of involved in I think it ended up being quite a journey. So the two sins that for me I wanted to reclaim and journey with were sloth, primarily because of my situation. For those of you who don't know, I was diagnosed last year with fibromyalgia, and I've been suffering with chronic pain and chronic fatigue for a couple of years, and it, you know, it really, I can pinpoint it starting after my son was born. He's 7 now, so really I think maybe 5 or 6 years ago starting, and then it got a lot worse during COVID because I had a lot of stress on me having to homeschool, and at that point we weren't aware that my daughter was on the spectrum. It was very difficult, and everything, I always feel like everything is so much harder since that time. And I only got COVID itself at the end of 2022, and I also experienced a fall that led to me catching COVID. So I fell in the December, slipped and fell and bumped my head. I had quite a bad situation, ended up in hospital, and then I caught COVID when I was in hospital, and I believe that the trauma that I experienced during that time, even like it sort of made my situation worse with my chronic pain and chronic fatigue, because I would, before that, it was like I would have to, every month or so, I'd have to get into bed like really early in the afternoon, and I'd just be completely shattered, and you know, I would read to the children from my bed and stuff, and but I wouldn't be able to like get up. But it was sort of, it didn't happen all that often, and it didn't take that long to recover, you know. After a night of good sleep I would sort of be okay again, but then it got worse and worse. And so then since that, the head trauma and getting COVID, since then it got just got so much worse. So really since 2022 it got a lot worse, and I felt that sloth was maybe the right thing for me to choose to enable me more to lean into what I feel what I felt and still feel like I really need, which is like time to rest that I am not punishing myself for, or that I don't feel guilty for, or that I don't in some way feel I need to be doing something else. And that's something that I always feel is over me. I'm always questioning, like, why are you doing this right now, in my head, because you should be doing this. And it's something that I've been working on for a number of years, and like being okay with and understanding, but then also like, you know, countering it. And so for me, I felt Sloth was calling for that reason. And with the very recent ingress of Neptune into Aries from my 5th house in Pisces, it's gone into my 6th house, which is where obviously, if you follow the stars, a lot of activity has been going on in Aries, and that is my 6th house of like work, day-to-day work routines, health, pets and career, sort of career stuff, but not career in the same way that the 10th house is. And during this time I've had some situations at work that haven't been good, having to reprioritize, resort out stuff. Basically, yeah, shit hit the fan. And my health as well, like as we were approaching the ingress, as Neptune was at that anoretic degree, it was really bad. And I've had quite a few flare-ups, you know, this year already so far. But since Neptune has ingressed into Aries, which has only been a few weeks, literally a week actually, I've been able to soften a little bit more into a routine that's kinder and gentler for my body. And yeah, I've always been quite passionate about eating healthily and like exercise and everything, but learning more and more all the time about nutrition and little ways, subtle ways, things that I can improve. And then obviously continuing to take my tinctures as and when I need to, because they really support. The nettle and the ashwagandha still support, and the white willow bark still supports. For those of you who don't know, I make the nettle and the white willow bark tinctures myself. I have made the ashwagandha before, but it's cheaper to simply purchase it. It's better that way, because then I'm not shipping the ashwagandha route to me, so that is better. The tinctures really help. So I felt myself needing to turn to Sloth for that reason, but the bigger thing that just kept coming up for me was pride, because I feel that in that way that it sort of seems to be what's considered, I guess, in a lot of the Christian doctrine and the writings and Dante's Inferno, as Jasmine has spoken to. I feel that pride is often spoken about as the kind of worst sin, and it's something that I think in today's society we're sort of really encouraged, or discouraged I suppose, encouraged away from and discouraged from feeling any kind of pride or hubris or any kind of joy in our own accomplishments and our own talents. And they say pride comes before a fall and all that, and it's just, I think it's unhealthy, because actually I'm someone who is talented in a number of ways, and I think it's been very hard to, it sounds bad saying that, and I think I'm someone who has always been completely self-deprecating all the time, and actually to a point where I put myself down a lot and make things very hard for myself all the time. I'm way harder on myself than I am on anyone else. I have ridiculously high expectations, being sort of a type A perfectionist young woman, and I think a lot of women do fall into this, and I know men do as well, and non-binary folks as well. But I think maybe it aligns with people who are very sensitive and who have a kind of proclivity towards these arts, the occult, esoteric, spirituality. It seems to align with a lot of those people. Of course, there are a lot of people who are very proud in not a good way, in these communities as well. Ooh, how do we cross, Coco? Do we climb over? Coco Loco, you coming? Come on. I haven't been here for a while because there was a point where they were doing some work on the trees because the trees were unstable, so I might have to turn around again. I don't think that's such a bad thing because it is late and I've had quite a lot of steps already. So of course there are a lot of people in this community who are, you know, prideful and boastful and egotistical in not a good way. But if you don't know the premise of the Witches Black Lent, I will send you straight over to Jasmine and Rose's channel and to Beanback Hagwag's channel, Trish. And this has been an inaugural event for 3 years, basically. This is the 3rd year. Many witches take part, and it's just really lovely to be able to reclaim some of these things. And actually, these are things that are human traits and they're natural. Just as, you know, being a sexual being, it's natural to have desire and it's not demonic. And yes, demonic things can happen from it, but many horror has been committed in the name of good, in the name of Christianity. I mean, and what we're witnessing right now is, I mean, there's so much that we're witnessing right now as a global collective, but what is happening right now in Palestine is, I saw made mention of the genocide. It's now a Holocaust and it's an ethnic cleansing going on, and that is in the name of what is good, and I just cannot, I do not understand. I cannot understand that in any way, shape or form, and 20,000 babies, 20,000 children, you know, and I cannot. And so last year I took on wrath for that reason, but this year I needed to be softer. But pride just felt like it fitted in so well, because it was just all about being me and being okay to be me and not caring. You're actually not caring if my belly is hanging out of my trousers, and that's so hard because I very much feel like my witchcraft necessitates embodiment. And even if I'm doing something that doesn't directly involve my body, you know, if I talk about being in bed and working something magically from the astral, you know, and my body is in a kind of hypnogogic state, my mind is elsewhere, it's still a practice in embodiment in a sense, and the getting grounded is a practice in embodiment, and everything that I do is rooted in this physical being, in this physical vessel here in Malkuth on earth. And I feel very much that pride was just something that I needed more of. I needed to be okay in my skin, my body, and to feel that I didn't need to be somewhere else or doing something else. And I felt, that's the thing, I felt like pride, it almost encompasses all of them. I have pride in my body and pride in my sexual nature and pride in my wrath and pride in all of the things that make me human, because I'm also divine and I'm a reflection of the divine. I'm a microcosm of that divine. But it is beautiful, and being human is beautiful. It's messy and beautiful, and I want to be able to experience it in a way where I'm not punishing myself all the time for every single little thing. And the thing about being a good person, like, I know, I can think it, I know that I'm not perfect, obviously, but I still want to be a good person. And if I shout at my kids because they're doing something wrong and then I get into an argument with my husband and, you know, I end up saying a swear word or something, then I feel like a terrible human being. I'm just feeling like that kind of thing. I beat myself up for it all the time, and I just need to be like, okay, this is a feeling that's coming up right now and it's uncomfortable and it's okay. It's okay to feel these things. It's okay to feel these things. And it's okay to have these human reactions to things. I just have to show you how beautiful. I wanted to reflect as well. So what happened was, after thinking about the different sins, the two different sins, sloth and pride, sort of mulling them over for a couple of weeks. So the first week I mulled it over was the week before it started, and then the second week I mulled it over was the first week. And I then, at the end of that first week, I had a download in the hypnagogic state in between sleeping and waking up again. The download, or the vision, I suppose, it was a voice, and it was audible. I've talked about clairaudience before a little bit, but I do get it. Sometimes I get it before I fall asleep when I'm in the hypnagogic state, and other times I get it when I'm coming out. Sometimes it sounds like it's in the room, and other times it's in my head. This time it sounded like it was around me, and it was a different voice. It was like the voice of God, I suppose. It sounded like it could have been a female voice, but really I don't think gender was important, but it sounded like it could have been a female voice. It wasn't my voice, but I knew innately that it was a part of me and my essence, and it said something so obscure and random that it couldn't have been in my head. It couldn't have come from anywhere. I mean, maybe it has come from somewhere, but I mean, not from any source that I've ever seen or read. Or I'm going to turn around because it does look like they're filling these trees, and I think it would be fine if I walk back. I can't tell you what it said, and there was a meaning that came along with it. I knew what it meant, just as I knew that it was supposed to be me, but it also was God or the divine. And it said, I am an orchid in August. I woke up and I thought, what? So I thought, okay, well, that's me, like that's part of me, that's come from me, but it's a download from the divine. I know that. I looked it up, like, is it a quote? Did it come from somewhere? Did I hear it somewhere? No. But what did come up was a ton of orchids that flower, specifically the Phalaenopsis, but there are a number of orchids that flower in August specifically. The Phalaenopsis is quite specific about its environment, as a lot of orchids are. And I don't have, well, I do now. I have purchased an orchid. I bought one for Mother's Day since the download, but before the download, I did not have an orchid. I haven't had an orchid since I was at uni, because I couldn't keep them alive. But that was a strange download. I also knew what it meant though, because it spoke, I knew what it was about. I knew it was about being objectified by masculine energies, and it was an orchid singing like almost a swan song, I guess. A swan song is like a dying song, I think. It was an orchid kind of lamenting sorrowfully, but also angrily, but it wasn't the kind of anger that was like wrathful. It was anger that was justified and quiet, but not resigned. Resigned was the wrong word, but just knowing and being okay. So it's almost like made peace with it, but making a statement nonetheless. So I obviously looked into orchids and ended up understanding from that download that it was pride, in fact, that I needed to, because it was about being okay in my skin and about understanding when I had been objectified by masculine energies and knowing that those things were not my fault. And you'd think that something like that would come along with lust or wrath, or maybe my work with lust and wrath the last few years have led to this point. I very much feel like they lead on from one another, the journeys that we're on. And this journey, this time, has been much more like an activation, or like a portal, moving through a portal. I recently watched Lennon Smith talking about her experience thus far and mentioning that it was potentially gateway was the word, or a doorway, or a pathway, but that definitely resonated, because I thought this has been that. It has been like a journey, but it's been like an open door. It was an open door, an invitation. And the strange thing is though, I think I was going the other way, because I've been down in the earth, beneath the earth. I've been wintering. I descended a long time ago. I've been wintering for a long time. It was an invitation to come back out in a prideful way, with peace and clarity and being changed. I did also share, I read Lennon Smith's Immaculate Immortality, the poetry book, at the end of last month. I very much felt things stirring within me at that time. I didn't quite understand what it meant. Particularly, I mean, I cried at a number of them, but particularly at one of them, one of the deities, which was Ereshkigal. I felt an activation and a stirring. And I've never worked with Ereshkigal. I have briefly worked with Inanna years and years ago, but it didn't go very far at that point. And the Morrigan came in. But I didn't really understand why Ereshkigal, and I didn't really look into it until I then had some experiences with Persephone. And that has also never happened before. Obviously, Persephone is a deity who comes up for a lot of people at this time of year, so it's completely natural. But I've never worked with Persephone before, I've never felt that stirring, but I felt it very deeply within me, and she appeared to me in a dream, and in a journey Lilith also led me to her. And I was like, that's not right, that's not written, because surely that should be Hekate. But I have briefly worked with Hekate as well, and Hekate for me, so the Morrigan feels very Martian, like Mars coded. Lilith feels very Plutonian, Pluto coded, into the underworld, and Hekate to me feels very Saturnian. And so Hekate's always just been there, and she's like, well, if you need me, I'm here. And she would be there but not be pushy the way the Morrigan is. And the Morrigan is pushy and then would disappear, because that's what happened to me since the Morrigan came back in again in January with downloads for me, again clear as mud. And since she's disappeared, and I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. But then when I met with Lilith around this time as well, like maybe 3 weeks ago, Lilith led me to Persephone, maybe 2-3 weeks ago. I was shocked at that, but there's also just been a lot stirring within me that feels so resonant about Persephone's story and her experience of being just told where to go and what to do by everybody, whether it's her mother or then her to-be husband, and just resonated a lot. I felt the stirrings there with Persephone, and I very much feel like it was an invitation of sorts to ascend. And I don't know if I'm quite ready, but the stirrings are there. And I did think the stirrings were there before, but the stirrings are there now because Neptune has ingressed into my 6th house. I'm looking for new employment, a new path. I'm actually considering new options as well, like a new career. And other parts of my life, obviously my health is very much in flux and flow, and Saturn is basically following Neptune very soon, and it does feel aligned. So far I have revered Persephone and read some of the mythology, not all of it yet. I'm working on that, but I'm also reading some other subjects as well, as I normally do, read a few subjects at once. I am excited because I feel there's new growth, new potentials, but it's painful. And I'm sure I'm ascending right now. I'm sure an ascent will be painful. And I think I'm going to go back to Journeying with the Dark Goddess, that book by Jane Meredith, because I read that book a number of years ago now. And it made sense at the time for my descent, but I was already there. So I think maybe the pathway back, an ascent, will be supportive. But then my experience really of pride has been challenging because it does not come naturally to me, and some people might think that's strange from someone who's a Leo sun, but you know, that's one placement and the rest of my chart doesn't really allow for, you know, a lot of pride. And so I want to lean into that a little bit more, and I think that with Mars going back into Leo soon, when it goes direct, it will go back through Cancer and then into Leo, and I think that that will perhaps support me more with being assertive and being okay with everything, and not having to qualify anything for anyone. And if someone's got an issue, then they've got an issue, and I just can walk away, because I pretty much check myself all the time what I'm doing, and I check my motives, and believe me, I flagellate, not literally, but I punish myself if I make mistakes. And you know, I want to be better at not punishing myself for things that I've not actually done wrong. But I suppose it goes hand in hand with the boundary setting work I've talked about a lot, and it's very important for me. So this whole process has been really empowering, and I haven't yet worked on a piece of art. I have obviously written the poem, which I perhaps will share a few lines from for this video. I'm sharing just a very short, abridged clip that has been edited of the poem that I created during this Witches Black Lent. To share the whole poem in full, in order at this time just feels incredibly personal, vulnerable for me, and something that I don't want to do right now, and probably I'm not likely to share the whole thing. An extract of I am an orchid in August. Yet we do not see. I could be between here and now, within myself as I, and outwards with the others, or simply nowhere, never, darkness and warmth. Nothingness is safety. Comfort in a lack of substance. Emptiness is softness, tender in its mercies. But yet I exist, do I not? For you idolize me so. Not that I have eyes to see, nor a heart to feel, nor the mind to know, nor the will to live. Yet I breathe, do I not? And I subsist. Everything I am is all that you project onto me. Everything I am is everything you cannot claim. To harvest, to captivate, to control me, to take of my peace, because of how I make you feel. Not mine, not yours, not theirs, not ours. You take of what was never for the taking, and you never thought to ask. Where I once draped my silken petals and launched luminous stars into the skies like empty dreams, there is no more. Now empty, dark, soft and warm. Down into the underworld, never, no more, not for you to find. So my camera has died a little bit early, but never mind. I think I've said everything pretty much wanted to say. I was just saying that I have written the poem inspired by the download that very much speaks to my experience of pride. I feel it's going to continue though. I've been very slow working through this process this time. It's been a lot of shadow work, a lot of writing. There's been a lot of shadow work in journaling form. Alongside that, a lot of things that have come up about being, you know, my own worst enemy and such, and needing to, you know, work through that. And that's going to continue. I feel the stirrings of an art piece, and I think it will be Persephone aligned, which is really beautiful, I think, as a devotional piece as well. But I do feel this stirring within and a call and an invitation to come out. And I actually think it's an invitation because it can be slow, but I think I will be forced out. Yes. So it's going to be necessary to ascend again. These cycles, rhythms come and go in our lives, and, you know, being spiritually minded and, you know, learning about the occult and esoteric subjects, it really supports you to do the inner work and to actually be conscious of these changes within. And I'm really grateful for that, but it is hard work, especially when you've got a lot going on in your actual day-to-day life, and it's challenging. But, you know, I'm here for it, and I think I'm ready. You know, I think I know now I can be at peace with certain things. I can be at peace with knowing certain things. I can be at peace with the uncomfortable emotions that come up for me. I can be at peace with needing to take things slower, because there is an internalized ableism. My friend so beautifully put it like that when I explained how hard it is to have been able to do certain things, like just walk around the house without feeling absolute agony and exhaustion for the fatigue of the muscles and the joints all over the body, to be able to just walk around and do the normal things I used to be able to do just, you know, I guess 5, 6, 7 years ago. I now no longer can do them all the time, and sometimes I'm just completely bedridden. And my beautiful friend, you know who you are if you're watching, phrased it as internalized ableism, and that's what it is. And so, you know, for that, I may be myself, but I need to check that, because that's not okay. Like, who am I to tell myself that I need to be doing X, Y, and Z? And it goes for other people in my life, because I have had some people, you know, tell me that I need to be doing more. I mean, people close to me, like family members, need to be doing more of this and that, because it's not good enough for your children and things. And I have to push back against that, because if I don't have my health, I don't have anything. And, you know, I have a diagnosis, but people don't see it. And that's, I think, one of the hardest things. I did write a post on Instagram and on Facebook and such, and I rarely put things on Facebook, because it's also a personal place for me where people who know my children are on there and things. And I, you know, I'm not exactly hiding myself, but I don't want the entire of my kids' schools and people who know us, like, knowing that I'm, you know, doing what I'm doing necessarily. And why should I? Because I've been treated pretty badly when people found out, to be honest. So yeah, I just think I have had experiences of being treated pretty badly when people have found out in the past. So I just think it's my prerogative to keep things as private as possible. But I wanted to say that, you know, you do get this toxic positivity and kind of spiritual bypassing in the spiritual, esoteric, occult communities a lot, and I wanted to address that. Like, if you don't know what to say, don't give advice about, like, oh, you should be doing this or you should be doing that, or, you know, if you are really tone deaf and you're trying to tell someone that you're supposed to love that, you know, they're just being lazy because they're in pain and in bed, then just stop. Because just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not a disability, and it doesn't need help and it doesn't need support. And I'm not gonna allow people to talk to me like that. And it's a quiet pride, it's a quiet anger, but it's accepted. Do you know what I mean? And that's the wisdom so far that Persephone has brought. It's almost like being in this dark space for these years has given me so much wisdom and given me so many opportunities to be prouder of myself and to be a stronger person. And actually, I think she's been with me the whole time. And I just worried like someone's coming. But I don't think Lilith has gone either. Lilith is here to stay, but I think Lilith is very much like, you know, I was helping you before to deal with things in a very angry way, in a very like fiery way, whereas now it's like, okay, you're ready to kind of
assimilate some of this and to reintegrate some of the things that you've learned and to come back out and to be proud of what you've done for yourself. And so that's where I'm at, and it's been amazing, and I'm so grateful to Jasmine and Trish for creating this. Like, it's been so powerful, and I'm not done, so I'm gonna keep going. I'll probably be creating an art piece and creating some form of sigil, maybe an oil. I think that's one of the prompts, isn't it? I think an oil for Persephone and pride, and that reintegration, that re-emerging out of the underworld. That's going to happen. And I may do another video. I don't know if I will, because the process for most people is nearly done. If you have any questions, I'm good to answer, and I'll probably speak to it again in later updates. For now, I have reached the end of the walk. I think I'm going to go home because it's quite late and I'm quite tired. But I just want to say thank you for joining me. I hope that this has been insightful, nourishing, interesting, not boring. Thank you so much to Jasmine, Trish and Lennon and Abby also, who were hosting in partnership with Jasmine and Trish. I will leave links below to videos and really encourage you, to start the challenge. I'm going to continue because I'm late as always with most things. So I always had my homework in on time though. That's one of the good girl things, right? It's one of the good girl things about me. So yeah, just gonna shake that shit up a bit more. Just thinking about what Isha says at the end of her videos to hexapatriarchy, because we're in need of it, and I could not agree more. So yeah, to all of you who watch and connect, I am so grateful. I've really enjoyed this. It's been really, really, really cathartic and supportive. I am wishing you all a beautiful day and a beautiful spring and summer ahead. Please do like the video if you liked it. Leave me a little stone emoji or a star. I always like the star. A stone or a star in the comments box. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Like the video, share it with anyone who you also think would be interested. Let me know if there's anything you'd like to see from me, and I will check in again soon. All right, take care, look after yourselves, and many blessings.